After a catastrophic event causes massive damage and loss of life, the remaining crew members must band together to survive. Let's talk about Syfy's The Ark. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my TV review for the sci-fi show The Ark. This is streaming on Peacock as well. As a matter of fact, the season has just wrapped up, so you can get all the episodes now on Peacock, and probably rerunning on Syfy as well. But this is called The Ark. We're going to talk about it momentarily here. But first, I want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We've got a ton of great stuff on the channel for you to peruse. Movie reviews, TV reviews, and I try to put something new up just about every day for you. Please consider subscribing down below as well, or like this video, share this video, or comment. That all helps the channel out too, and I sure appreciate it. So let's talk about this show. You know, my channel here is not specifically sci-fi driven. You know, I have some buddies that are definitely more into the sci-fi thing than I am. But you know what? I grew up on it. My dad, a huge sci-fi fan, you know, from the beginning days of Star Trek. He was in high school when the original Star Trek came on. And so I grew up with all of that stuff, Doctor Who and Twilight Zone and stuff. So, you know, anytime there is a new sci-fi show, I do check it out and see it kind of under two lenses. You know, how do I feel about this as more of a casual sci-fi fan? And how do I think a massive sci-fi fan would feel about this show? So, you know, I kind of laid the basic premise out. Essentially, this is taking place 100 years in the future. And this big, you know, catastrophe at the beginning of episode 1 causes a bunch of destruction and a bunch of lives lost. So the remaining crew members have to kind of band together, and they are sort of the, for the most part, the more novice people on board. And so they have to kind of figure out, you know, what's going to work for them and who they're going to be, you know, in this whole thing. In terms of the actors, I don't really know anybody in this series. I'll read off some of the names. We've got Christine Burke, Reese Ritchie, Richard Fleischman, Stacey Michelle Reed, Ryan Adams, but not the singer Ryan Adams, and not the singer Bryan Adams either. But anyway, there's you know, there's a few of the like higher ranking members still around, but for the most part, it's these you know, younger bucks, and that you know, gives us maybe a positive and maybe a negative as well. So first of all, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this. This is a sci-fi original show, and it looks like a sci-fi original show from 15, 20 years ago. It is just so low budget. It looks kind of cruddy. The effects are bad. And, you know, it's interesting to me because, number one, you've got the Universal machine behind it, right? It's airing on Peacock the next day. You know, NBC is owned by Universal. Universal owns Syfy and many, many other properties. But it's interesting to me that they would allow, you know, this to look as bad as it does. It reminds me a lot of, like, 80s and 90s, sort of that syndicated sci-fi stuff that was on, where it just, you know, you had to kind of coast by the story and the characters because the effects were not going to do it for you, you know. And there's a certain charm to, like, the rudimentary nature of the original Star Trek of the 60s, but yeah, in the 90s, a lot of it just looked kind of cruddy, but you're like, okay, well, it's the only sci-fi thing on. You know, so I'll give it its due. But now there's so much sci-fi out there. It's almost mind-boggling that they would let this look as poor as it does. So that leads us into the other portion, which is, okay, so how does the rest of it stand? How is the dialogue? How are the characters? How is the plot? How's the pacing? How's the acting? All of those things. Because it doesn't look great, right? So the rest of it is a bit of a mixed bag. I think because they've chosen to have a lot of these characters that have remained among the living be on the sort of younger side, the young adult side, it turns out to be a little more soapy than I think a lot of sci-fi shows are. And that can be okay, but it's not done particularly well. You know, the script is a bit basic in that regard, and sort of the, the infighting and the possible love triangle stuff, and it's all a bit basic. However, there's a positive here too with this show. I do think the general plot, though been done before, it's okay. I did get a bit invested in some of the characters and some of the goings on with this ship. They're about a year from their destination. I forget what the name of the planet is that they're supposed to be going to, but so we have, in theory, a year with these characters. Now, if it gets renewed, maybe they'll veer off course or something, to contain it longer. But they're 1 year away from their destination, so we see kind of okay, well, we have a little bit of time with these characters before they supposedly get there. But I was thinking a lot about some of these other sci-fi shows, specifically that don't have particularly good first seasons. I think Star Trek The Next Generation is probably the prime example of that. Even Trek fans will tell you that first season was not very good, but people wanted more Trek. It was literally the only sci-fi show on the air at the time, so they tuned in droves. And then, sure enough, it got better, and for my money, is the best of the Star Trek series. I know that certainly could be open for debate. But even something as recent as The Orville, which, granted, Seth MacFarlane, I think, was going for a much more comedic spin the first season, or at least the first half of the first season, and ended up turning into really one of the best sci-fi shows out there. I'm not sure if I see that kind of potential here, but the acting's fine with what the people are given. It's just that the dialogue is so badly written when it comes to those more sort of character-driven moments, emotional scenes. That didn't quite work, and then just the look of it is so poor. So there's a few positives in the mix there. I think if you're a hardcore sci-fi fan, maybe you will like this a little bit more than I do, because, hey, it's maybe not trying to do anything necessarily new, but it's giving us some interesting characters to look at, whatever. As for the casual fan, I think it's okay, but I'm not really going to spend any more time with this show. The first 3 episodes, I think, were enough to get my feet wet, realize, okay, maybe this isn't for me. But I do see some potential there. I just wish they would have put a little bit more money into it so it didn't look like Sharknado or something, which I know, is a sci-fi staple. But yeah, in any event, I will leave The Ark with certainly a middling grade here. I'll give it a C, but there could be some potential there as it continues, as we saw with The Orville and some of the other things. So, all right, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.